Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Historical Humans podcast. My name's Justin Woods, and I'm joined today by Coleman and Gwendolyn Allen. And today we're going to be talking about Friday the 13th. It's right around the corner, and it's one of, I think, the most talked about supernatural, superstitious holiday, if you could say that. And before we jump in, just want to apologize. We're facing a little bit of nasty weather here, so there may be some background noise, some apocalyptic storms happening behind us.
Is bringing in the atmosphere.
Exactly. It's perfect for this
Yep.
kind of topic, this dark, brooding topic.
So it has
If one of us
absolutely
gets
nothing to
knocked
do
out.
with what we're saying or any rituals we may or may not have engaged in.
And if there's just a serial killer killing us behind us, you know that it's
Yeah.
all.
We've
It's all
blurred out the
good.
screen so he doesn't distract you with his murders.
Exactly.
You know,
Everyone who wears a flannel,
Yeah.
dude, I actually have the flannel that looks like Jason's flannel. I should have worn it today, but I decided to wear my sun and moon dress because I was like, ooh, spooky vibes.
yes.
Damn.
Yeah.
So now you wanna lead us in, Colum? Let us know what is the backstory behind Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I do not think of myself as a great enough expert on this phenomenon, as Friday the 13th is a cultural phenomenon, and thus its origin and its nature is a little bit messy. So I decided to bring in a little bit of a friend here to help us out. So to explain the beginning of Friday the 13th, I now present to you Osboro the Occultist. Hello, everybody. I am Osboro the Occultist. So Friday the 13th is actually a horror in two parts. See, there's two superstitions that combine to form this dark and stormy day. The first are the superstitions around the number 13, and the second are those around the day of Friday, both of which have some history of association with ill omens in various cultures. Friday the 13th is currently present in many Western societies as a day of bad luck. It has become so prevalent in our societies that you will notice that many buildings in places like America do not have a 13th floor. Instead, the 13th floor is labeled the 14th.
Dun dun dun.
Maybe that's why Americans can't count right. I say this as an American, so no one get pissy about it. But like,
That's the public education system, dear.
11, 12,
Well,
14.
as they start practicing when they're kids, because you practice with the numbers.
Yep.
They'll be like, oh yeah, I can count. No, you can't.
Yeah, it is spread to hotel rooms, which will not have rooms numbered 13. And even several airlines will not have a 13th row listed on their planes. Yes, it's quite the prevalent thing in our society. As I say, our society being Western society. Osbro the Occultist is, of course, a Western occultist. Thank you.
Oh, that could be an interesting one, talking about Western and Eastern cultists.
You'd have to specify the occult, It's,
Yeah.
We are the occultists. It's like inside job. We just are.
But you have deep geopolitical borders, apparently, if there's a division between Eastern and Western.
Listen, there are many borders within the occult. It's quite difficult to navigate if you are not privy to them. But yeah, Friday the 13th, they don't really have too many clear origins. There are a couple that we can trace back, specifically in the Western realm, but there are a lot of retroactive accounts for why Friday the 13th is bad. Bad or ominous. And there are two words to describe people who have a fear of Friday the 13th or believe that the number 13 is unlucky. However, each time I look at it, it triggers my dyslexia. So I will ask one of you to
No,
pronounce
not
it.
me.
There to help. Yes, there's been a lot of sort of confirmation bias with people saying, "Oh, I don't like the number 13. Let's look back at all the times 13 has had something bad happen to it." The same with
Yeah.
Fridays a lot of the time. So fear of Friday the 13th itself is paraskivadecatriophobia.
Okay,
Say
cool.
that
Because
10
I did
times
not know
fast.
some of those consonants were in there. I looked at it, I was like, oh no,
And
I
I
can't.
did say it wrong. It should be paraskividecatriophobia. I
Okay,
put an
okay.
A in place of an I at one point. Very poor form.
Oh.
Someone should
Then,
make that into a dubstep song.
and then finally, people who just think number 13 is unlucky and are generally afraid of that number itself are triskidecaphobes. Triskidecaphobes.
Would it
I
be triskekadekaphobe? Because I feel like tri is the number for 3.
Do not question Osborough's horrible
I am so
pronunciation of
sorry.
English
I am so
language
sorry.
through a quarter inch of plastic.
I don't know if this is just an omen of my personality, but I actually think I'm the opposite, where 13 is actually one of my lucky numbers. And it
A lot of people also think that too. Like Taylor Swift is one of the most known for it, but a lot of gamblers think that 13 is lucky too,
well,
which is kind of
I think gamblers should be more interested in 19, aces and eights, blackjack style.
I
I don't know. I don't
Another
gamble.
cultural phenomenon there. That's the dead man's hand, for those of you who don't know. Never get dealt aces and eights in poker. Never.
when I was in little league, I was a slugger, and the numbers went based off of the kid's size. So number 13 was the fat kid jersey. So I always gotta shoot that one.
Ouch.
I always knew what my number was gonna be because I was the biggest kid.
There you go. I was always the shortest kid. Our numbers never like coordinated that. Sometimes it would go based on last name, so I like had a chance to be number 1.
Even last names, I was still in the very end.
Yeah, you are Woods. I'm so
I
sorry.
just need the world's smallest violin to play for me now.
Yeah, I'm an A, so you know.
Oh, fancy.
It's,
All right, so let's look at some of these weird origins of misfortune.
yeah. Before we get into all the wonderful backdating and associations numbers have, we did manage to trace down the origin of Friday the 13th as it is known in Western society today. Surprisingly enough, it is all the result of a book. That's right, reading causes ill fortune, kids.
Don't read. This is historians against reading. Wait, no.
Stop it.
I joke.
There are too many people that take that seriously.
We actively advocate
We are
for
not
reading.
a Facebook moms group. We are not a Facebook moms group. We are not some Christian middle-aged moms group. All right, reading is good. Reading changes the world.
A book
One
a day
book made
keeps
people fare an entire day.
a book a day keeps the ignorance away.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna go with a much harsher word, but that's a good one.
So the novel in question was written in 1907 by Thomas W. Lawson, called Friday the 13th. The novel is about a stockbroker who uses people's superstitions to cause a massive stock market crash on the date Friday the 13th, and consequently rob them all blind.
Which the interesting thing about this is it was almost perfectly emulated during the Black Friday crash of 1929 as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was a couple of parallels between the book and the actual stock market crash that people look back, and it actually almost adds to that omen, that like ominous factor. Granted, it didn't happen on a Friday the 13th, so that part, kind of falls a little flat, but, we love a good market crash, apparently.
We also love a good premonition book.
And the other cool thing, too, is the history with the number 13 goes back even further. when we look back at the Code of Hammurabi, which was a collection of laws by Babylonian King Hammurabi, who reigned from 1792 to 1750 BCE, which is before Common Era. And the interesting thing about these laws is it actually omits the 13th law from the legal code. However, it is possible superstition, or it just might be a translation error from the ancient Babylonian. So it's kind of on faulty ground, but it could be.
Yeah, with a lot of this, Osbro did have to leave. His mask is very hot and not breathable. With these Babylonian texts, like the Code of Hammurabi, we are translating a written language that nobody speaks into modern English through a series of telephones. To do this, we translate the Babylonian into another text that is newer, that we have translation, that we have one-to-one Rosetta Stone translations for with other texts, and we just sort of play a game of Google Translate to get what we call, the actual meaning of these words.
And I mean, that's the other thing with translations, just kind of in general, is kind of a general guideline as to why some translations differ and vary, is because you are playing that long-term game of telephone, and your translation can change depending on which words are around to be able to use for that meaning.
Yeah, like you might end up having to translate it. I don't know the exact route that is taken with a lot of these, but you might have to translate Babylonian into Mycenaean, into Coptic, into Old Greek in order to get something that we can actually then translate into a modern language.
I think my favorite translation, though, growing up as a Catholic, was the King James Bible. Reading that was like trying to read a different language when I was younger.
It's still written in Old English, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. Thou shalt not.
Yeah. Yeah, that is always fun with Bibles. And speaking of Bibles, we'll get to them in a minute, because there is one thing we would like to go over in chronological order before we get to the creation of the Christian Bible. Things happened before the creation of the Bible.
Is it my favorite thing with the pyramids? Does it have to do?
No. It's my favorite thing with the pyramids.
That's right. It's aliens.
No. No. It is that Egyptians held that life was in 13 stages, and the 13th stage was death, because that was the transition into the afterlife. So that is another reason why death can kind of seem ominous and spooky.
Yeah. And with the Egyptians, this wasn't a bad thing or something to be feared, this 13th step, because the 13th step wasn't so much the act of dying or being killed or your life ending. It was your traveling to the afterlife. It was effectively the journey to heaven, was the 13th stage. If you want some more stuff about Egyptian afterlife, we do have some videos on that. We have a Reed's video of the 42 negative confessions one must profess in order to enter the afterlife. And we have an entire podcast on the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is a series of spells to guide you through this 13th stage. We have a lot of things. That's a lot of plugs right there. Well, this was a good thing. However, as time goes on and views change and the Egyptian religion does die out for the most part, the idea of death and its 13th stage kind of takes on a bit of a more dark, or I guess Christian meaning. Becomes an increasingly bad thing to die.
Now can I jump back in with the holy book?
Yeah, we've reached the Bible.
So in the Bible, it's interesting because the Last Supper of our boy Jesus Christ had 13 guests. But who sat at the 13th? Who was the 13th guest? It was none other than Judas, who betrayed Jesus. And this resulted in a long-standing tradition of 13 guests at a dinner party being unlucky.
Yeah. It was this was a very long-held superstition. In Victorian times, you were going to have a dinner party that had 13 people. You would put out an extra seat and put a doll in it so that there'd be a 14th guest.
Oh, that's creepier.
Creepy ass
Let's
porcelain
invite
doll,
another
guys.
person, babe. Oh my gosh.
No wonder so many Victorian porcelain dolls are haunted, because that is creepy as hell.
Because they were meant to stand in as a person. And, they look haunting, and they are probably haunted if haunting was ever to exist, because that's an emulation of a person designed to imitate a person.
So it becomes a vessel for the spirits.
Whoa. I have a
This is
question.
not factual, but this is superstition.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when Victorians had their parties where they ate mummies, did they count the mummy as a guest?
No, the mummy,
No.
I believe, was a course. The
was
food
dinner.
does not count. It's about butts and seats at the table.
Well, the butt's at the table. It's just on
It's
the
not in a
plate.
chair.
Stop.
It's about Gwen. It's about when what we were talking about here is we were talking about the number of chairs around the table,
No,
and the
I
number
know.
of people sitting in them.
I know. I'm just being funny.
Yeah, can you pass me a little piece of Ramsay's over there? Yeah, thank
Stop.
you.
Stop it. Yes, Victorians ate mummies. Victorians did a lot of weird shit.
They also
Victorians
blended
made the
up
Ouija
mummies.
board, so
They blended up mummies to make mummy brown, which is an actual pigment, and
Yep.
they can actually date paintings from that era, because even recreations do not use the same pigment, so they can test.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
So if you're trying to get into art forgery, mummy brown.
do not do it. It is
Please
one
don't,
of
like,
the most
kidnap a
horrifically
mummy.
wasteful things you could
You are
possibly do
forgers.
with a human corpse, especially a human corpse of a mummy, which is something that, by the religion of the ancient Egyptians, is still considered to be alive.
Not like the British in Egypt using it as train fuel.
They did a lot of weird things. They did a lot of really stupid things in Victorian times, but that's not what we're here for. We're here
No.
for
Weird
the
superstitions.
Friday the 13th and the superstitions surrounding that. So yes, 13 guests at the table. Very unlucky. This actually has a parallel in the North mythology, where everyone's favorite Norse god Tom Hiddleston was the 13th guest to arrive at a banquet, and he ended up murdering one of the other guests.
Oh, that
Nah.
tricky Loki. That's just
He
Loki.
tricked someone into murdering a guest.
Yes, he did.
It wasn't his fault.
Yes.
Yeah, he tricked the
Uh,
blind god Horder into murdering his brother Balder.
No, it's Hodor.
Hodor.
like Game of Thrones.
Hodor.
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 So yeah, that's
His
a very
brother
fun.
Balder.
I looked at this. The full story behind it is Loki did not like Balder, because Balder was essentially the golden boy of the gods, and Loki thought he was smarter than Balder and didn't like that Balder was getting all the attention for being, a manly man golden boy. So he creates a prophecy that nature will kill Balder, and Balder's mother gets everything in nature to swear an oath upon its existence to not harm him. But Loki steals mistletoe and hides it, so mistletoe never hears about the oath. And on the day of the banquet, that's supposed to have 12 people in honor of Balder, Loki crashes the party, and the gods can't get rid of him. And everyone sort of boasts that, like, Balder's invincible now, he's greater than ever. And Loki says, well, all right, Hodor, he's your brother. He trusts you, you trust him. I've got some darts. Why don't you throw the darts at your brother? And the darts are made of mistletoe, and it just pierces his skin and kills him.
Damn. That's clever, though. That's
That's
really
why we
clever.
kiss under the mistletoe.
Yeah, it's mistletoe. Lethal in more ways than one. The berries are also very poisonous. Do not buy live mistletoe.
Oh, those are my favorite flavor.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a whole thing. That's a whole story and a half around that unlucky number with 13. But fun fact, Justin, you're talking about how 13 is your lucky number.
Yes.
There's your lucky number 13. Well, turns out that for medieval Christians, 13 might have been lucky despite the association with Judas.
Really?
Yep. Because in medieval European theology, a lot of those sort of Dark Age theologians believe that 13 was actually a very auspicious and holy number, as it was considered the number of the commandments plus the Holy Trinity, making it effectively the number of the culmination of God's will, since the 10 Commandments are in the Christian tradition, the 10 rules laid out by God to govern how humanity is supposed to live. And the Trinity is the three most holy aspects of the Christian religion. They consist of God himself, his Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, which is effectively the essence of God's will on earth.
Oh, the Holy Ghost.
So the number 13 for medieval Christians was considered the culmination of holiness.
But that involves math. And who really likes math?
Medieval theologians.
Well, I'm not one of those, but I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're already a moon spirit.
Yep. Well, speaking of moon spirits, Gwen, did the moon have anything to do with the number 13?
Of course it does, because lunar calendars have 13 months, which led Mayans and Hebrews to consider 13 an auspicious number.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of good luck associated with the number 13, kind of in this middle space between very ancient times and then right now today.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people today argue whether 13 is lucky or unlucky.
What matters is the belief, and all it takes is an early 20th century book, apparently, to turn everyone against something.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised how, easy it is to turn an entire, culture against something. It really should not be that easy.
We got to turn the culture against books. We got to ban them.
And we've been talking a lot about mostly Western or Near Eastern cultures so far, because that is where the 13th tradition comes from. We did touch on the Mayans very briefly right there with the lunar calendars. We do have a video on lunar calendars, a whole nother podcast if you want to check that out and learn more about how those work. We have a lot of other videos that tie into this. I apologize for the constant shilling, but hey, we're doing our thing.
Yeah.
So if we go over to India, in the Hindu religion, it was considered unlucky for 13 people to gather at all for any reason. I couldn't get a clear answer as to why it was this way in the digging I did, unfortunately. But it seemed that number held that association, and still to this day holds a bit of association in terms of people coming together. If you do know why that is, please leave a comment down below telling us why, because I could not find that, and I am very frustrated that the bottomless barrel of facts has failed me.
If anyone from India is watching, be sure to let us know. And then one of my favorite ones, because it is myth busting, is the 13 Club, which brings us way back here to America. It was started by Captain William Fowler, who wanted to remove the stigma around number 13. He wanted to reclaim it. So how do you break a stigma? How do you break a curse? Well, you hold
a dinner party.
Yeah, on the 13th day of the month. But not just that. How many guests do you need to bring?
Oh, 13, obviously.
Yeah. And do you know what...
So if you're dining alone, bring 12 creepy Victorian dolls.
And if this place has a couple of rooms, what room number would you want to get if you were going to, say be at Knickerbocker Cottage, which is...
Oh, obviously 13,
Yeah. And the thing I love is
Fowler owned and named his little cabin Knickerbocker Cottage.
Okay, but that is a badass name. A Knickerbocker, come on.
Knickerbocker.
Sure, we'll go with that.
It's not badass, but it's hilarious as all hell today.
It is very odd.
But the thing that I love is there are multiple U.S. presidents who are involved, and we could do an entire episode about secret Masonic societies that our presidents were a part of, secret organizations, Skull and Crossbones, the 13 Club. But of the U.S. presidents, 4 of them were members, which were Chester A. Arthur, Grover Cleveland, the 2-time presidential champ, Benjamin Harrison, and Teddy Roosevelt.
So typically not the most effective or prominent presidents, with the exception of the last one.
Hey, the fact that Grover Cleveland served 2 non-consecutive terms and is the only person to have done that, you got to give him some respect.
Yep.
I don't know. 2024. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Keeping politics out of this video is recorded in 2022. So as of 2022, that has only happened once in U.S. history.
Right. And then, of course, as if that wasn't enough superstition busting, they would pass under a ladder, and you speak Latin, I do not, so I'm going to pass the reins off to you.
So they would walk on the ladder reciting in church Latin, as that was a form of Latin that was taught and known at the time. Moritori ti salutamos. Those of us who are about to die salute you. A line you might some of us might recognize from the movie Gladiator, as that was borrowed for their fictionalized accounts of the gladiatorial arenas saluting the emperor before a match.
I wonder if that's the inspiration for the song "For Those About to Rock, We Salute You."
Maybe.
Because it's like almost a direct translation there.
Maybe, that's a metal song, right? And metal likes to borrow a lot from superstition.
I wouldn't classify it as metal. It's more classic rock. But yeah, it's like AC/DC. Oh god, I might just offend a lot of people. It's it's proto metal. It's early metal.
It's.
I'm just saying, I was watching
AC/DC and Led Zeppelin aren't metal, but they like to step on that line.
Well, they were the first ones, so someone's got to blaze the trail.
Yeah, with the 15 versions of metal we have today.
15. There's over 150, if not thousands.
I'm not getting into this with you.
I could be like Bubba from Forrest Gump. There's shrimp jambalaya, shrimp gumbo, shrimp on the Barbie. Because there's power metal, there's metal.
I'd like to point out that I was 2/3 of the way right, because I had 2 of the 3 numbers, 15 versus 150. I will not lose.
All you're missing is a 0.
Yep.
Which he doesn't.
So does it really count?
Yeah.
Yep. But we're not here to talk about 1s, 5s, and 0s. We're here to talk about 13s.
Exactly.
And to bring us back to this, so we've talked a lot about the first part of the Friday the 13th sort of mythos and superstition, which is the number 13 itself. Now we're going to sort of transition over, I think, into what happens when you combine 13 with a Friday, because Friday, like the other days of the week, has its own associations and ties throughout history that interact with the 13 to make Friday the 13th the absolute horror fest that we know and love today. So the sort of earliest thing I could find with the Fridays and the 13th with Western culture, and this is going to be based a lot in England because we are an English-speaking podcast in a mostly English-speaking country as of 2022, the United States of America. The first instance of a recorded instance I have of a Friday being unlucky is in the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, who was a famous 14th century English writer and poet.
Which is the 1300s.
Yep. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, wait, I got this. The panic suspense. Dun, dun, dun.
Yep. There is a quote in his book, direct line, that says that, "Hold that all misfortunes happened on a Friday." This is a direct statement that essentially all these evil, horrible things that he's talking about in one of his tales, in the Canterbury Tales, happened on a Friday. marking Friday as essentially a bad day or a day when bad things happen to people.
I prefer to call it an other than lucky day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Fridays though in England, they were a good day too.
Oh yes, Gwen, I believe you would have appreciated this day for your dance macabre, as Friday was the day where you got to watch men dance the jig of death from an end of a rope, because Friday is Hangman's Day.
Well,
Listen,
executions.
public executions were incredibly popular. Yeah, it's bad for a prisoner, but like people would bring their children to like public executions. Like you could buy toys and like throw rocks at people. Like
So, fun fact.
it was an event.
No Monty Python joke.
Nope. Tying back to actually one of our very first TikToks, Christopher Lee, Sir Christopher Lee, Count Dooku, or Saruman. He was present at the last public execution, and it actually took place in France. So he was there, and he was also just, a secret spy that actually killed people, but, death was normal for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sir Christopher Lee, actually a terrifying person.
To the point where during the Lord of the Rings movies, Peter Jackson told him to scream when he got stabbed, and he looked at Peter Jackson and goes, "Have you ever stabbed men? That's not the noise they make."
Be still my heart. I love that man.
Which, fun fact, it's more like a gurgling and burbling.
I know.
Can't actually scream.
Yes, people don't get to do long monologues after they start leaking blood. They're usually too busy dying.
Allegedly.
But there's also like
Actually.
the origin of why we call Friday to like get slightly back on track.
Yes.
Because the term Friday originates from the day of Frigg, which refers to the Norse protector goddess and queen of the gods, Frigg. She was the goddess of love, motherhood, and marriage. And so Fridays were a bad day to get married on, because then you're taking all this importance from Frigg, and you're comparing your marriage to hers. Not the best to do.
Yep. Try not to compare your eternal happiness with that of the gods. Competitions rarely work out in our favor.
Yes. So it was thought to be the spread of conflict, and then, or not the spread of conflict, but from the spread of and the conflict from Christianity, rebranded Fridays as ill portents. So, also like still bad day.
Still a bad day for marriage, but any of the good associations were immediately torpedoed by Christians trying to make anything that wasn't Christianity evil.
Yeah. I mean, they did a number on Loki in a lot of the terms where he was kind of turned into like the devil character, which he really wasn't.
They transmuted him into Tom Hiddleston. It was a very sad day for him.
I mean, that was the only like I will say good thing that has been done, because I love Tom Hiddleston's Loki. I am one of
them. Pretty well, I will.
Very good. That's why I refer to Loki as Tom Hiddleston at this point.
Yeah.
Fun fact with the whole Christian war on, I guess what we would call pagans. The term pagan, which is associated with basically anything non-Christian, was the Latin term for country folk.
Yeah, it was just a common country religion.
It was a term for someone who lived in the countryside.
Those country bumpkins.
And because the countryside was one of the places that was slower to be converted to Christianity, it became associated with non-Christian gods, and that term became a blanket term to just sort of whitewash over all these different cultures and religions that weren't Christian, that the Christians kind of wanted to get rid of and replace with their own.
Yeah, so there is no like one pagan religion.
There is no such thing as pagan. There's the modern idea of paganism, but in ancient times, pagan was just country person, and then it was not Christian person.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, even nowadays, so like in town, there used to be the Pagan Pride Day, which was an awesome event. If anyone gets a chance to ever go to one of those, they are so much fun. You do not need to be a pagan to go. I go as an atheist, and it's just fantastic. But literally, like, you have so many different religions there, and people will generally like say to people, "Oh, I'm like a pagan. I practice this." You don't just like be a pagan. You're like, "Oh, I'm a pagan. I practice Wiccanism or something like that." Because it's a lot more accessible term, because people only know a couple of the small religions.
It's like, and it's not just the small religions too, like animism or hoodoo or a lot of those other things that are out there that aren't as prominent. Technically, by the definition of the word, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, pagan.
Yeah, I mean, those can technically be,
because it just means not Christian and religious.
Also, I do want to point out the fact as well that a lot of pagan holidays and pagan traditions are eventually adapted to a more Christian, basically the Christians acculturated to it, or like adopted it,
repackaged.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is what happened
Like
with
Saint Nicholas.
Sondheim and the solstice and Yule and things like that.
Yep, Saturnalia.
Yeah.
That's a fun one. If you ever look that up, it's a big part of the reason of why Christmas is celebrated when Christmas is Saturnalia.
Yep.
Also, Saturnalia itself, very fun holiday.
Oh my gosh, so interesting. That was one of the highlights of looking up Christmas for my thesis.
Yep.
But we'll get back on track.
Yeah, but we'll get back to that. Let's bring us back to Christianity again. Proper Christianity. And Fridays, Good Friday, was a good luck day. So, like 13, there is a period when Friday is considered good luck before it goes into this whole evil situation. So there's Good Friday, which is the day Jesus was crucified on the cross. And this was considered a holy day because it was the day of his sacrifice, upon which, all men are made holy through the, horrible mutilation and eventual murder of this man.
See, I read this in the notes, and I didn't know what Good Friday was. Like, I know it's on the calendar for some reason, but I never knew what it like cemented and whatnot. And I read that, and I was like, "Isn't he supposed to be y'all's guy? Like, aren't y'all supposed to be sad that he was crucified by people?"
But
why is it good?
It's through his crucifixion that human beings are allowed to enter into heaven. And so it's considered a very great day because it's the day that he gave his life to make a, as the Battle Hymn of the Republic would say, he dies to make men holy.
Also, to point out too, within Christianity and like that period that's also why on Fridays, well, especially with Catholicism, because that's where I'm speaking from, you actually can't eat meat, and that's on a Friday tradition. That's why fish fries are very prominent.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That would make Friday very sad if I couldn't eat meat.
Yeah.
If I followed
Except fish is apparently not meat.
Yeah.
Which is weird because it is.
Oh, well, the exception for fish actually comes from the fact that, those little Jesus fish symbols?
Yeah.
That was a symbol for God. That was when they were persecuted, that was a Greek emblem for Jesus Christ. So there's a lot of.
I thought it just happened to look like a fish. Did they do that on purpose?
No, it's not. It's not done on purpose. But the association was that sort of like you're not supposed to eat meat on a Friday, but if you're eating a fish, you're making that same symbol, which only coincidentally looks like a fish, and it's sort of a. Hi, I'm Christian too. We have to pretend to eat meat because they're looking for all the people with salads today. They're here to kill us again. The Romans are here to kill us. We have to eat meat. It's Friday. They know we don't eat meat on Friday. Let's eat the Jesus fish. People did a lot of really weird and creative things to avoid getting caught. But avoid getting caught was including the fish on Fridays. That was one of the things that does come from that in some traditions.
Interesting.
Also, there's also just the general idea of vegans being not the brightest people on earth and deciding that fish doesn't count as animals. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to offend everybody. I don't care at this point.
Oh, man.
No, you're good. I always found that weird, too.
Yeah. But speaking of, biblical traditions, there is also a series of Fridays in which bad things do happen, leading to, helping lend itself to the, Friday and 13 is bad. According to the Bible, Friday is the day Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit and got humanity kicked out of Eden.
Do they even have days of the week in the Garden of Eden?
Yes, they did, because they had to track the time in which it took God to build all of the earth. So that was the 7 days of the week. The 7 days God made the earth. That was Eden time.
I thought it was built in 3 days, like Rome.
The Rome's built in a day.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, you have a lot of numbers in that head.
I thought the saying was
there are a lot of
Rome wasn't
numbers in
built
my head.
a
I'm
day.
getting mixed up.
Yeah, the saying is Rome wasn't built in a day, unless you're Augustus. So also on Friday, there is the day that the Temple of Solomon was toppled. This is a biblical myth involving essentially the Christian biblical hero Solomon collapsing a temple on himself as the pagans had chained him to the temple and cut off his magic hair so that he could not have his super strength. And when they came to kill him, he used what little strength he had left to pull the pillars of the temple that he was bound to down on them and collapse the temple.
The Bible tends to have quite a few stories of murder, because Friday was also the day that Cain killed he killed his brother Abel and became the father of murder.
Yep.
He invented murder.
Yep. Fun fact. Christian tradition. You couldn't kill people until Cain killed somebody. No one had thought of the concept before.
What? You just killed him? That's awful. How could you? That's the worst thing you could do.
We've got this knife, and you know how we put it in the sheep, when we want, lamb? Well, I just sort of put it in my brother.
Criminals everywhere that man's a genius.
It worked kind of the same way. I was surprised. I mean, Loki put this blindfold over me and told me he had a magic dart, so I just kind of went with it. It's a callback. Friday was also the day God pressed the reset button on the world with the flood of Noah's Ark. So Friday is apparently also the day God committed genocide. And Gwen, I appreciate the double arches. No, I do not think McDonald's is going to sponsor us.
But then
I haven't eaten all day, so
we continue on, and after some genealogical research, a couple of my ancestors here. The day before the Battle of Hastings was Friday the 13th, 1066.
Yep. And I'd like to point out this was in October, because that's going to be important later for bad things happening on Friday the 13th in October. That's going to be a theme for a while.
And good old my great times probably 300 at this point. William the Conqueror gave Harold II a chance to relinquish his crown. And, Harold, being the good, smart ruler that he is, he said no. So William just hopped the English Canal and, took it by force.
He was already across the English Channel, not a canal. This is
okay.
The English Canal would be very, very crossable.
Well, I figured that's why so many people were swimming it. It's only about 100 miles.
Yep, it's the English Channel, and October 14th was the Battle of Hastings, in which William the Conqueror became William the Conqueror by conquering England and annihilating Harold II's army.
Now, was he known as Harold the Defeated then, or Harold the Conquered?
No, he's known as Harold II. He's not the Conquered. You don't get titles based on what other people do to you. You get titles based on what you do, like Ethelred the Unready,
or Ivan the Terrible.
Yep. You get titles based on what you do. So it was seen as a ill portent because Harold didn't surrender his kingdom, and his entire army was essentially massacred in the battle.
That bastard.
Yeah, didn't go well for him. Fast forward about 250 years, we have the Knights Templar, who are probably the most famous instance of Friday the 13th ill omens, thanks to a semi-historical account presented in the Da Vinci Code, another book that has warped people's perceptions of the day.
I would say the movie did it a lot too.
Movie helped, yeah. So on Friday, October 13th, 1307 Common Era, King Philip IV of France declares the Templar Order heretical and tries to arrest all of its members, or at least all the ones living in France.
As one does.
Yep. And things were not particularly good for the Templars he captured, as when he captured them, he seized all their assets and money and tortured them repeatedly until they confessed to heresy before killing them.
Now, whatever so could be the reason as to why he would do such a thing? Did they have anything against heretics?
They had money.
Money?
Yes. Yeah, see, Philip IV, he had a bit of a spending problem. See, he was deeply in debt to two people come the start of the 14th century. He was deeply in debt to Jewish moneylenders and to the Knights Templar, who, thanks to their efforts in the Crusades, had acquired a lot of treasure from the Holy Land that they brought back with them. Additionally, as a tax-exempt religious organization, they received constant donations from the pious, making them massively wealthy in terms of land and money. So King Philip was deeply in debt to them, and he wanted to sort of recoup his losses and not pay his debts. And legally, by the standards of the time, you could not owe money to a heretic. And all of the heretics, and if someone confesses to heresy, their property is forfeited to the state. So he gets to take out loans from them and then not pay them back and then take their houses. And he did this when he a few years prior, when he expelled all the Jews from France in order to say, I can't owe you money because you don't live here.
Horrible, man, but I mean, smart using the system to your advantage.
Yep.
Well, it's kind of easy to do when you're king.
Yep. I know.
And
damn, it must be good to be king.
Yeah, and fun fact too, the only reason he got away with doing all this with his Friday the 13th arrest and the heresy to was a very powerful and very militant order is because Philip IV was the power behind the Pope. See, one of the reasons he was in debt was he spent a ton of money making sure that Pope Clement V became Pope Clement V, which effectively meant that once he had the Templars in his pocket, or captured, there wasn't a lot the Pope could do, as Philip could just have him replaced.
Wow.
Gotta love corruption with the government and the church.
Which was a practice pretty well instilled with things like the Borgia and other such political instances, Pope politicking, the French Schism, a lot of things.
The Tale of Three Popes.
Yep, the War of the Three Popes, all that stuff.
If you guys want a small episode on the War of Three Popes, let us know. That's a really fun one.
Yeah.
It's like Among Us. Who is the imposter?
Yeah. Yeah, if you ever watched the Netflix series Medici the Magnificent, it's that but on steroids.
We could also talk about the three Medicis who became popes.
Yep, or the Medici that became Queen of France. We have a lot of things to do with popes in France and corruption. That's great.
Isn't there
And
also
fucking
the pirate
Medici.
pope too?
There's a lot of There's a pirate pope. There's a pope damned to hell. There's a lot of
There's the
a lot
pope
of
who
interest.
declared war on cats.
Yeah, that's a TikTok you did. We're not going back to that. That was annoying. Anyway, Pope Clement V was he by all accounts he was reluctant to back this Friday the 13th arrest and torture and all that stuff, but he kind of had to, and he delayed for 3 years before he dissolved the Templar Order and declared that they no longer existed. At which point, and a little bit prior, all the European monarchs followed Philip IV's example and abducted their local Templars, declared them heretics, and took all their money.
I know I told you guys this, but I've actually shaken hands with the Templar.
Yep. Yeah.
So unsanitary.
Yeah.
You
You found
Dublin,
a Templar corpse and you grabbed its hand in Dublin.
in Dublin,
terrible person.
there is a church called St. Micah's that you can actually pay €5. It might have gone up since, but they have a crypt, and inside the crypt is the body of a Knight Templar who was like 6'6" back in the 13th century, or would it be a slightly earlier? It was First Crusade.
First Crusade, probably 12th century, as they were founded in the 12th century for the Crusades.
Okay. His body was so big that they couldn't bury him in a standard size coffin, so they actually had to break his legs off at the knees. And basically, the location of his burial mummified the body, and as a part of the tour, I could go and rub the top of his hand, so of course I did.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
8,000-year-old body I let you touch.
And yeah. And speaking of the Templars and their governing body, there's a lot of myths and superstitions, since we're on superstitions today, about like the Templars smuggling like the Ark of the Covenant and things into America. Well, one of the reasons that myth is able to prevail is because even though it is completely false, the only king to not persecute his Templars was King Dennis I of Portugal, which made Portugal a safe haven for the Templars to gather. And, it is on the western edge of Europe.
And, it wasn't too much further that Portugal took to the seas and began exploring and traveling.
Yeah, not too much further. Another 180 years.
I mean, it could have persisted, potentially.
Not to mention, most of Portugal's exploration was focused on the Ivory Coast in Africa.
So, Ark to Africa confirmed?
No, stop it.
That's a different conspiracy.
Back on Friday the 13th, there's a couple other instances of Fridays and 13 being considered unlucky. One of those is the biography of Gioacchino Rossini, a Italian composer. His biography, which was written by an Englishman named Henry Sutherland Edwards in 1869. So we got Victorian times coming back here, with 13s being bad. He holds that Rossini died on Friday the 13th, and that it was considered auspicious because, well, Italians were supposed to be afraid of the number 13 and the day of Fridays in general. Except it was the English who were afraid of 13s and Fridays. In Italy, it was the 17th that was to be avoided on a Friday.
Interesting.
Yep. In fact, 13 was considered the number of good luck in Italy during the 19th century.
So we had a lucky death day.
Yep, it's your lucky day. You're dead.
Thank God.
It's what I've always wanted.
It's been my true goal in life finally accomplished.
He was a musician. There's a good chance he was depressed. Or is that a little bit too much of him?
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Tortured souls.
Yeah. And speaking of days, other than Friday or 13s that were considered unlucky, Spanish-speaking countries or countries with heavy Spanish influence, it's not Friday the 13th that they fear, but Tuesday the 13th. That is the unlucky day.
Wait, I got this. Dun, dun, dun.
Yep. So that's a fun little thing, and just sort of get through more of the stuff. Gwen, you were talking about a little bit about how 13 isn't really a bad omen day. Well, there was it was the Dutch Center for Insurance Statistics did a 2-year study. I think we should talk about that.
All right.
Talk about bottomless barrel.
The Dutch Center for Insurance Statistics, a study that was done in 2006 to 2008, tracked the rate of traffic accidents in Netherlands for 2 years. And days where 13, that it was the 13th and Friday, had an average of 7,500 accidents. And days that were Fridays but not 13 had an average of 7,800 accidents. It's theorized that people are more careful on Friday the 13th due to superstitions, but only by like 300. Which seems like a problem.
It's a slight increase, but it is statistically significant.
Correlation is not causation.
No.
Yes, but ooh.
So the solution: make every day an unlucky day, and we'll have 300 less accidents every day.
Yeah. Though I will say that being a spooky person and Friday the 13th, it is always fun to celebrate because I am more likely to freak people out on Friday the 13th than on other days, which I find hilarious.
Yeah.
As a goth person with my black cats that go around me, so yeah. But also, like, one of my best friends, she was born on a Friday the 13th. So it was March, sadly not October. But she was the only one in her family that was like born with like really dark hair out of like the cousins. So they thought that she was like a superstitious kind of like baby.
I mean,
that is fun.
That's a good transition into talking about just popular culture about Friday the 13th.
Yep. And before we jump into that, Gwen, I do have the numbers for that Dutch study. So that was a 4% decrease in accidents, which is statistically significant, but not by much.
Yeah.
But it is notable.
It's notable, but the goddamn.
Yeah. People are still bad drivers.
But in terms of popular culture, we've already mentioned a few, like the 1907 book. We've briefly discussed the Da Vinci Code. There's also, honestly, one of the original hacker slasher movies, Friday the 13th, with Jason Voorhees, who just went around murking people with a hockey mask.
Though the original, it's not Jason, it's his mother. Gotta give respect.
True.
Yep. Other instances where, the popular imagination for 13 is unlucky was the Apollo 13 incident, where all up through the launch, everyone was complaining about the number 13 on the capsule because it's an unlucky number. You're going to kill everybody. It is one of the most famous disasters of the space age, and it's of NASA history. But ironically, the people of Apollo 13 are probably the luckiest astronauts in history, because with everything that went wrong on that spaceship, they still came back.
Yeah, that has not happened.
Same cannot be said of other instances where things went wrong, like Challenger.
Or Discovery.
Yeah. So, 13. Unlucky because a lot of horrible things went wrong and they didn't get to land on the moon. or lucky because your spaceship blew up and you didn't die.
Yeah.
I
Lucky
think
because you survived.
living might be a luckier thing, so I
Yeah.
would say that's a lucky.
Yeah, you detonated an oxygen tank in space and blew off an entire side of your spaceship, and you didn't die from that. Yeah, there's a
The 1408 film,
oh yeah, it's number 13.
which adds up to 13.
Yeah, that was a fun little trick. We've gotten to the point where we're starting to play little tricks with this superstition. I put down a couple things that probably I only know too. There's a parody film from like the 90s called Saturday the 14th, which makes the argument that people think Friday the 13th is unlucky, but it's nothing compared to Saturday the 14th. And it's a bad parody film that makes fun of every horror movie in existence.
Oh my gods, we have to watch this.
It is you would love it. Like everyone is oblivious to the point of stupidity. There's vampires, Van Helsing, extra dimensional portals, pseudo Beetlejuice stuff is going on. and it's just everything that can go wrong goes wrong when a family moves into a house on Saturday the 14th.
I am so down. We need to have a movie night again where we watch these bad movies.
Yeah, we've reached a point where it's not just a thing in popular culture. It's so prevalent that people are making fun of it, that people are finding new creative ways to hint at it with 1408. It's crazy. I mean, it's even a children's book that I had as a kid called 13 Ghosts in a Haunted House, which I think Gwen would like a lot too, given her aesthetic. Because the whole premise of the book is that there's ghosts haunting a house, and this witch moves in and starts murking the ghosts one at a time.
There's also 13 Reasons Why.
Yeah.
Scream is another one that emphasizes Friday the 13th a lot.
Yeah.
Freaky Friday is kind of a comedic take on the whole bad luck Friday.
Yep. Mm-hmm. We've gotten to the point where we can make fun of it now because it is something in Western culture thanks to that one book 115 years ago.
I mean, going back to Jason Voorhees too, he also makes appearances and cameos in so many other films and movies and like so many other mock-ups of it. I know The Simpsons, a huge cultural phenomenon. They've had him on a few times.
Freddy Krueger.
Freddy Krueger, he made an appearance on South Park. Like, there's a lot of, I think Family Guy even, they make jokes about it.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of shows that will make it. Like even when like Disney has their like horror Halloween episodes, sometimes it's a Friday the 13th episode. And the stuff that like goes wrong or like the veil into like another world or like misfortune or something.
My favorite one by far was The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. The episode they did where they held a seance and was talking to the ghost. And Esteban,
I love Esteban so much.
He's the reason I chose the name Esteban for my Spanish name. Like when I took Spanish class, they made us take a Spanish name.
I can't remember the whole name, but I absolutely
Esteban Julio Ricardo Ramirez de la Rosa. That's about as much as I remember.
I think he's like the third.
The third.
Yeah.
He's then like he's got like all his family's the same except for his one grandmother Gladys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a whole thing when like Gladys became queen of his country.
Gosh, I love that episode.
But I think we're at a good point here that we can, I think, pretty comfortably wrap up. This has been kind of a more unconventional episode, as we're not so much talking about like solid history or anthropology, but more so taking a cultural approach, looking at some phenomena and superstitions, while also talking about some of the historical implications of it.
And
Yeah,
Justin,
I mean, which is a
that
part
is
of anthropology. Don't knock my
That
subject.
is anthropology.
Yeah.
No, sorry,
I have
meant-
a degree in anthropology. Cultural phenomenon is anthropology. This
Yes,
is less historical and archaeological than what we usually do.
Yes, that is
And
exactly
more
what I meant,
cultural
and
anthropology.
I apologize,
I
Gwen.
feel like
That's
I'm just
what I
getting
meant.
slapped in the
Falls
face.
under
like,
history
I feel
and
what?
humans, which is a name.
I misspoke. I apologize. Yes, it is cultural anthropology more so than archaeology or history. Thank you, Colum, for straightening that up. I'm so glad I have my live auto checkers on.
Well, I'm specifically a cultural anthropologist. That's why I'm like, I'm here. I don't just do the design of the thumbnails, okay?
So this has been Historical Humans, episode 11, Friday the 13th. Signing off until next time.
Be sure to like and subscribe. And
Yes.
if you guys want to see anything from us, any shorts or reads, just let us know down in the comments. And be sure to check out all of our social medias, which will be listed in the show notes. Thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you all in 2 weeks, which our next episode is going to be on the Darien scheme when Scotland attempts to colonize Central America.
Does not go well.